Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks.
Well, it's 11:01. We may as well get started. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's a follow-up to some sessions we probably ran in the spring about new to SeeSaw. So it's great to see some new people checking it out and seeing what SeeSaw is all about. My name is Pam Gallant, and I'm one of the members of the program team. And I have with me Steph today. So Steph's one of my teammates as well.
Good morning, I'm Steph Wood. I see lots of familiar faces, which is exciting. So I'm so glad that you're all here to learn with us today.
I was laughing at myself. It's like, oh yeah, back to regular. I got 3 devices and a notepad on the go. So feel like back to school.
Exactly.
Go gently into the start of the school year. And we do acknowledge that it is a very different startup this year. And with our role, Steph, we're not in the classroom. So we have a different kind of unknown and anxiety. So classroom teachers, thank you for joining us today. And because I know you're probably trying to figure out what this year is going to start and look like. But know that our program team is here to support you with curriculum questions and program things. And Steph, you with ELL students, we're still here. It's like we had a lot of questions about what we would be doing to start the school year. And it's comforting to know that we're going to be able to continue our roles and support classroom learning.
Absolutely.
So we have, I wanted to start off today is, again, I like thinking back, what are the things that are consistent and true? And one of the things is honoring the land in which we are living and working on, and with our traditional territorial acknowledgement. I know, Steph, you did a lot outdoors this summer, and I did as well. Exploring Lambton and Kent County a little bit was a great piece of rejuvenation for me, really important for that. So in Lambton, Kent, we are very lucky to be surrounded by many rivers and lakes and streams. And we use these bodies of water for recreation, industry, substance, and they also homes to many plants and animals that provide food and help to keep the environment clean. We must acknowledge that this area looked a lot different not long ago. This area that we farm and shop and live in is the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. And it is their belief that we are part of the land that sustains life, and it's the sacred responsibility of all people to ensure that the environment remains protected. We must acknowledge that through treaties and the mutual sharing of the land was agreed upon. And within these treaties, there's an obligation and responsibility to care for this land that extends to all peoples. Please take a moment to reflect and make a commitment to the land and the people who have lived here for thousands of years. It's really exciting as we move forward in this learning this week. We've opened our doors up and welcomed people from across the district. So we know SeeSaw is very popular in our area, but throughout the week, I know there's going to be lots of people joining in on our conversations to learn about race, learn about student well-being, some math instruction. So it's exciting that we're thinking about land all across our province. I even invited my sister and my niece that live in the East Coast. With that. So Steph, do you think we're in the right spot today?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. So this is, yeah, so people are probably wondering, am I in the right spot? And like, welcome. It's a place to ask questions today. So if you're interested in, you have not got a SeeSaw account, you're still welcome to join in today and learn. Maybe at the end of the session, you'll be interested in getting an account, and I'll be able to help you with that process. We have some little tips with that. And my role on the team is assessment and evaluation, but I also have lots of little other pockets that I look at. And one of the things I support is the SeeSaw platform for our district and help us get a line to SeeSaw, the company. So if you need any help, email me. I'll be able to help you out. And if you have a SeeSaw account already, you may be just interested in learning more deeply about how it might look in class and how it might look outside the classroom. If we make that move, if you're an online teacher, you'll be looking to use SeeSaw in one different way. So it's all about learning today and how do we go about sharing that with our students. So again, I am outside the classroom and support the platform that way. Steph, can you tell us how you seem to be engaging in SeeSaw lately?
So I've done a little bit of creating some of the activities for students, helping teachers support their students in their classroom in terms of our early ELL students when we were doing some of the online learning in the spring. So initially, I used to use SeeSaw to document things with students. And that was before. And then when we went into the online learning, actually creating the activities through the new opportunities that we have now that we have the full SeeSaw account. So I have done both.
Okay, so it's interesting how we've really had SeeSaw as a way of like documenting what students were doing in the classroom, and then the shift to online learning, how creative our teachers in our district were about getting it to be a way to communicate with families, share learning with them. So I think it's going to be a really great tool for us moving forward. Just to note though, it's just an overview of SeeSaw today, so we're not going to go into the details, but we will direct you to places where you can find out those details on demand for you. And I'm sure there's going to be questions. And so originally we thought question and answer, but Steph, maybe can you add, you're going to be managing all questions and chats today.
So yes, please, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or if you're comfortable, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask a question. I will relay questions from the chat for Pam or answer them myself if I am able to. And we will also have time at the end if you want to dig a little bit deeper, if there's some other questions that didn't quite get answered as we go through. But please feel free to use the chat to ask questions and get clarification on items.
And I don't mind being back and forth conversation too. So if you need us to pause, just signal us somehow and we'll go back and revisit. Okay. So just to, like what's going to happen in the next little bit, we want to be under an hour, but we'll stick around for if people need to have some questions asked and answered. But we're going to remember that SeeSaw is a tool to support the learning. So it's just like paper and pencil. It will be like chart paper. It will. What's really great is this tool, it has a lot of features that allow it to be a very flexible tool. So that there's cameras and video recording and access to putting links in things. So it's a very flexible tool, but it's a tool to support that learning with our students. But as we go through today, kind of 3 things we hope you'll be able to walk away with a little bit of knowledge and help you determine that, yes, I can go into SeeSaw because I think this is something that's going to support learning with my students, is that we're going to talk about how do you connect with students and families because it is a digital platform. Looking at the creative tools, so how will students be able to create an artifact that we can then share and organize and use for assessment if we'd like, and keep connected with families. And then activities, things for students to engage and learn on. And probably the biggest thing I didn't put on the slide is build relationships though, because we are just 2 people that really like SeeSaw and be able to support it. But really, at your school, there are many, 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 many excellent resources for SeeSaw. Your colleagues are fantastic and teach me something new every time I talk to them. So we'll hopefully feel that you're not alone in this journey. Okay, and again, since we are not the knowers of all, if you have a question and I don't know how to answer it, this is where I usually end up going, is the SeeSaw Help Center. And you'll see it on the screen. It will look like this big blue thing. You type in your question, you're like, where is the stuff? I need an answer. Just scroll down. There's going to be lots of information for that. So Steph, have you been using the help ever?
I have when I was initially building activities and couldn't figure out why I couldn't get them to do the things that I wanted to do. Also how to, like other people's activities that I would see. And I'm like, well, how do I do that piece? I want to know how to put tags in, or I want to know how to, right? So yes, definitely. It's very helpful.
Don't go to Google and say SeeSaw how to. Go to SeeSaw Help and use their search, like get in that community, because teachers are ready and willing to share how to do things. And then the company of SeeSaw, the Help Center, they have really great instructions and some things you can actually share with your students too, like to get started on this. So just a brief overview of how SeeSaw works, and it starts with people. So teachers have a SeeSaw account, and what they're looking to do is they have classroom set up, so our students are added to it, and then within that you have the ability to connect with the family, so through an email account. And so we really encourage you to, we'll go through some steps on this, but to make sure you have a email account for the family that they wish to receive SeeSaw information like. And it comes to them almost like a Facebook feed, like it's really user-friendly for that. So teachers, you can use the activity bank or create your own activities to share with students. Originally in the classroom, SeeSaw got famous for the ability for students to document their own learning. So using those creative tools, they can take pictures, they can draw, they can record videos, and they capture their learning into what we call the journal, and it develops a portfolio over time. And you can sort that portfolio by subject area. If you're a kindergarten teacher, lots of teachers use the 4 frames as their folders, so students can do that. And teachers are looking at that work and can use that for assessment or making decisions about where to go next, what's next practice. And with families, they can see what their students doing in class, and they can see their child's learning, and also communicate with the teacher, like on, like liking comments. It's as easy as that, or asking the question. And there's the abilities for teachers to send announcements and private messages to families as well. So through our demonstration today, we'll hopefully give some context to how the teacher and the student and the family work together. One thing we do want to make LKDSB, or Lambton-Kent teachers, known is that our school board has purchased SeeSaw licenses for educators in our district. And we say educators because we learned during our initial time we started with SeeSaw that kindergarten teachers and ECEs partnered, and they both had accounts and worked together on that. And then as we moved into that time where we did distance learning in the spring, we increased that fold into having EAs wanted to be able to connect with students. So that's a viable option for our educators. And also our principals are administrators of the SeeSaw for School accounts there, so they're able to communicate and network with families through SeeSaw as well. So how do we go about doing that? It's already paid for you. LKDSB will take over the fee for that. What you need to use, though, is your lkdsb.net or lkdsb.com email address. And people say, does it matter which one? And it's really a personal choice. You will be getting notifications about SeeSaw. So it's a personal decision. Where do you want to receive these email notifications? Because some people like to keep the .net for like their professional world, and do the .com part is where they work with students. So again, it's just up for you. There is an option though, if you've logged in through the Google icon, it's a little more of a bendy path to get connected. So if you have a connection, you're going, I'm not seeing all these features, it may be because you've gone through Google icon, and I'm the one that can help direct you to get back on the straight and narrow. So we can do that. If you've already paid for an account, SeeSaw has worked with us, and we can get refunds through the company for you if you've used like your Hotmail account or maybe a Gmail account and you want to connect. Okay. And it will be connected with your school. So if you are in the position of you change schools, again, I can help you out with that, getting you connected to your school. And when you're starting off, we suggest that you go onto the website using the computer just to get started, and it works on all platforms with that. Any questions there, Steph, we have to deal with? Or? Oh, you're muted, my friend.
No questions right now. Oh, Angela is asking, how does she know that she's connected through her school?
Okay, so when we get, I'm going to go live onto my account, so you'll see that I'll be belonging to an LKPD school. So they gave us a school to play around on. So you'll find that if it's not correct, just shoot me an email, and I will get you switched over, because what they'll do is move your classes and all that sort of thing. SeeSaw will do all that for us. And if you log in today and use your .net or .com account, you can just get going, and I'll get the notification that you want to join the LKDSB SeeSaw for Schools, and I will grant access and put you in, and you won't have any service interruption at all. You'll just see I'm good to go. Okay, so yeah, sign up after the session if it's what you're looking for. So I'm just going to show a little video. This is a sample of what you may find on the SeeSaw for Help. It's just a quick clip of how to, create your class, but this is the quality and the information that you can find on the SeeSaw for Help. Oops, sorry.
Let's get set up in 3 easy steps. First, from a computer, go to the website app.seesaw.com. Click I'm a teacher. Choose create account. Then enter your first name, last name, email address, and create a password. Click create teacher account. Next, let's create our class. You can import from Google Classroom, or today we're just going to name our class and choose a grade level. Click the green check, and your class is created.
Easy peasy. So we haven't gotten into the Google Classroom piece yet, so we just encourage you to use the .net or .com email. So once you have that account, what you might do, so we're going to walk you through live of that, but again, you'll figure out how to log in. We'll take a moment to look at the home screen because there's a lot of places to click on there and give some information. And I'm going to take you through the settings piece, just to answer some questions. And again, your teammates at school will be a great resource for about changing your settings if it's not working for you. And we'll look and see how we might add a student with that. So this is what a screen will look like for a teacher. If you are looking at the left-hand side of the screen, this is where it's kind of like that Facebook feed feel, where the students, one after the other, if they're posting things, it will scroll through here. And you can just look and see what students are choosing to post or what activities you've put in there. There is an approval post before things get put into a journal. So there's a whole draft time period. If things aren't appropriate, you don't need to approve it, that sort of thing. So that's down here at the bottom. This is where your class will be named, and there's some buttons here that we'll go through. The journal is what you see is that running record of what students do, activities. If you're a kindergarten teacher, a new skills bank has been put in there. You'll see where you can have communication from families. And then here's all the list of students in your classroom. So you'll be able to scroll through and say, if I want to look at a particular student, you can click on them and see their journal go along with that. So it's kind of a busy view, but once you get into it, kids and teachers have really responded to its ease once it gets moving around. So I'm going to go live here in just a moment, but I do want to talk about when we get into the adding students. It's down here at the bottom is where you'll add some students. First button it comes up is ask for a student ID. And we have, if this wasn't the startup we're having, we would be asking teachers to put in like a student ID number that's connected. We're not sure yet, but the OEN number, for example, so that we have in the future the ability to carry student portfolios from year to year. But we're just not there yet. So I just usually end up putting like the student ID name. If I have Max in my class, I might say Max, and then it will say, what's his name? And go with Max. Or you can use a number system. It's not really required. It's just like they want you to type something in there. So I've used the double name. Steph, have you run into any issues or questions about the ID from people out in the field?
I have not run into any questions about it. And I've just doubled the name up as well.
Yeah.
Just because I would track my students based on what I was doing with them, and I didn't want it to link with the classroom teacher because the classroom teacher may be using SeeSaw.
Right.
with that child, right? So
it's something that's coming in the future. We had hoped to have it ready, but there's just so much new that we just thought, and we have a new student information system. We were just like, let's
just a couple things. It's fine.
go to that. This is exciting. Exciting. Okay, so I'm going to go over to SeeSaw here. So I had followed the instructions to create a class already. So when you come up, I have the ability to be in, you can always create more classes. So that's what I was thinking I want to do now, but no, I'm just going to go over here. So I'm in my class.
And down there at the bottom, Pam, you can actually see which school you're tied to.
Yes, exactly.
So Angela, if you're looking, if you click there and then down here.
So I was connected to Arrow Road at one time, but then they created a school called LKPD school. So we've been able to add things. I use my family names. My dad is 81. He's one of the kids in my class right now. So I'm making up stuff as we go along here to support the learning.
Stella's in my class, and Stella is my dog.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got, this is where student work will appear for us. This is the name of my class that I've created. The buttons across here, and you'll notice that every class you join has a sample student, and I didn't realize the power of the sample student. If you don't know if your activity is going to go at, like, we can time the activity for released on Friday at 9 o'clock, try it out in the sample student. They're kind of your test case for all the things, and every class has one.
It's super useful because then you can try and see how things work, and no one will get any notifications, so you don't have to worry about sending things out. It is super useful to use.
Yeah. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and I'm just going to click on Add Students, and I'm going to add, so get students signed in. We can add once we get them to the computer, but I'm going to go over here to this Add Student button. And so right now I have Clem, my dad, my sister Julie. I'm going to add my other sister Jane into this, and it's looking for a number, see if it's connected with any other class. It's not, so I'm going to add her name, Jane, there as well, and create the student. Okay, create student. So now I have 3 students in my class. So if you have your class list that's always constantly changing, you'll be able to add them or change them. So at this time, so if I know more about the student that I want to add in here, I just clicked on the expanding arrow and add their name. How's it going to display? If I want to change icons for kids instead of the first 2 initial letters of their name. If there are like a grade 5 student and they're using their Google account, maybe I want to consider using that. I could use their Google account in here. That's all choice, not required. And I can add family members once I get to that place. So you can do a lot here on this student page. And that's the thing with SeeSaw, you can do things in many places. So you'll find the path that's great for you. I'm gonna come to the student sign in later on. So yeah, we're just down here at the bottom for adding a student. But I thought we'd spend some time with this wrench piece because it's about how to set up the class that's going to function well for me. So I clicked on the wrench and you'll see that I have a class name. It's a grade level. This year I have grade 5 put in there. I was a junior teacher for most of the time I was in the classroom. And often I had a 5-6 class. There's no option for a split class. So selecting a grade level, I often went with like the most number of kids I had. So just something to know there. And if you have an SK1 class, again, like you can put the kindergarten or the 1 class in there. It only really matters when you're searching for activities. And so just to be aware of that, is like if you're struggling to find something, sometimes the shortcuts are connected to grade level. Manage teachers. Since we have the paid version of SeeSaw, we have the ability to add teachers to become part of our classroom. So if I was a homeroom teacher and Steph was supporting the class, say as a curriculum support for phys ed and drama, I could invite, type in Steph's name in here and her preferred email and invite her to join this class. So therefore then we can work together on the same group of kids. It saves our curriculum partners, our prep teachers, a lot of work by not having to create all these classes, but we're sharing those the students together. And that may be an option for you. You can add many teachers to this, I think up to 20, because we have the paid version. But just know that it's the notification piece is you're sharing not only artifacts and that sort of piece, but notifications.
So that threw me at first, because I was added
Mhm.
as a teacher to a couple of my students' classrooms so that I could help the teachers support their students' learning. And I also got all the notifications for approving posts. And I panicked at first because I was like, oh my goodness. But you don't actually have to respond to them.
Right.
They just tell you that they're coming.
Right.
But yeah, and having that like other people in is really nice, because then you can share information, and you can also post as, say you're the music teacher or the phys ed teacher, you can post work there for students as well.
Absolutely. So again, we think about well-being for our students and being connected and all that sort of thing. We have to think about well-being of ourselves as educators too. If constant notifications about things you can't really control is something that's going to stress you out, you may want to create your own class, which is totally okay, right? So it's just about how you choose to partner up with teachers in your system. I like the ocean blue color, but you have a whole collection of colors. So that's one visual clue that people might want to think about. If you were a curriculum partner, you might want to think, you know, green is when I have Pam's class, purple is when I'm with Steph's class, you know, that sort of thing. It might just visually help you. And class icon. So now when we get into the student part, so thinking about how are students going to access SeeSaw? So there are 3 options. So most of our LKDS classes, our students share a device in class. So that's how they go about getting the access. So I've clicked that one on. In some places though, they might be at that one-to-one device spot. So that would be another option. Or if they want, if you feel your students have access to their lkdsb.com email, you may wish to add on the email part, and they will be able to type in the answer, their email. So you'll have to go in to individually add those. So again, click the arrow, the change, and it says, do you really want to do this? And they're like, oh, no, we're going to do shared devices. So confirm change. So if you are in class learning in the fall, that might be your choice. Okay. I'm going to go back. Manage the students. So this is another place where you can add a student, just like we did before on the Add Student button. Home learning codes. So if we get into that position where we are might have to take a pause from the in-class learning and need to learn at home piece, the home codes is another way where you can connect with students. So once your students are already in, you can get everyone their own individual home code. I'm going to click on that print code. So if we know, we can shove something in a backpack, or we can download it for information. So each student will get an individualized letter about how to go about doing this. So see Clem, this is his own learning code and how to do all that.
And these letters are available in a number of languages from the SeeSaw website. So you have to actually log in from the web version, and you can get these in a number of languages.
So great. So Steph and our role with the board works with our students, our English language learners. So thank you for adding that to us. And SeeSaw has these home codes for the entire school year. So in the spring, they were actually expiring on us before June finished. So it's nice that they're here for a whole year. So this home code is available for you. So this might be something that we start off with our students right off, you know, once we get to learn SeeSaw, then you're sharing at home. Now, Steph, we learned a little bit about when students are using the home codes and there's 3 kids from the school and they're all on SeeSaw. What have we learned about home codes? So
the students have to log out and then log in with the new home learning code for each child that is using it if they are sharing a device. So that is something else that you'll need to make sure that families understand, that, well, I can only see Julie's SeeSaw. Why can't I see Clem's SeeSaw? Because Julie has to log out in order for Clem to be able to log in.
Correct.
Mhm.
And if you are choosing to use the email address piece, you don't need the home code. So again, if you're a junior teacher, that may be something to look at. And again, this is always here for you to look at and see, this is what I want.
The email address, and the only caution that I have is that sometimes it's very easy to mistype, and then students are, I can't get in, I can't log in, I'm not able to access my things. So the home learning codes always work for the student, and then and they also have the QR code. So that is an easier way to get in if you're concerned that your students may have trouble with their email addresses.
So students' likes and comments, this is something you can choose to enable. Knowing your students, do they want to like each other's work? That's probably something you'll make a decision once you get to know your kids. Will they be able to comment on each other? Again, it's just, I probably will turn on, yeah, you can make comments on your friend's work because I want to encourage them to communicate, write something, but I need to approve those comments. So again, just little turn on, turn off things about student safety and privacy that you can consider. So once we get our students connected, you put all your kids' names in, and in my case, I'm showing that they're sharing a device. You'll be thinking, well, how can I connect with families? So again, click on the button here to enable family access. And SeeSaw has done a great job for how to invite families. So once you get email information from families, so for Clem, I would find out what preferred email they would like, or a mobile phone number. And then you'll be able to, once I type something in there, they'll find out if you've sent the invitation, but you'll find out if the family has responded yet. Each family can have multiple people viewing the account. So that's great, mom and dad, grandparents, that sort of piece. But just know that when you're sharing questions and comments, like how big the circle of communication is to go along with that. So again, if you need to update or change this, this is where you will go do that. So I'm just going to put in, I'll act as my dad's parent in this case, just to show you an example. Make sure I typed it correctly. And I'm going to invite the families. So what happens, you've invited one family to connect, and I'm going to invite more families if I want to add more. Okay, so just bring you back there. But I will get an email with the instructions on how to connect to SeeSaw with all of that. So, and again, the instructions are very similar to with the students in the home code, very easy, friendly in instructions to go with that. Okay, manage families, again, there you can go in and find out who's connected and who's not. Okay, and class blog, don't really know much about that yet, but that might be something, you know, if later on you experience it, this is a great way to share things. That might be something for you.
Pam, we have a question.
Yeah.
About a permission form to parents about SeeSaw. And then should we send it to parents before school starts or after students have started school? And is it something that we need to reach out to principals about prior to using?
Excellent question. So every school, their principal is the school administrator along with me for the SeeSaw account. So principals are very well versed in what SeeSaw has and understands the communication. They can view the communication like between like a student and what they're posting on their SeeSaw account. So they are knowledgeable about it. If they're not super confident, they refer the questions back to me. So within the SeeSaw help group, there will be, if you just go into like introducing SeeSaw to families kind of resource, have a look at that and see if that's something you want to use in entirety, or if you want to take pieces of it to connect with it. Some families are very familiar with SeeSaw because their kids have been using it in kindergarten and all the way through. So it's not like you're sending out something blind. It's a very trusted tool in our district. So again, I encourage you to shop around in the student SeeSaw help for that.
There are definitely letters that you can send home, and they can be individualized for the students from the screen that Pam is showing you now. There is options where you can find the letters that you can send home. And SeeSaw does have lots of documentation to help you explain to parents how this is going to work and what works for, or how it will work for them.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I answered it, but not really. Like, you get a lot of choice, essentially, what's going on there.
This platform is approved by the LKDSB.
Yes.
So in terms of permission to use, we have permission to use this platform with our students. This one in Google Classroom.
And beyond actually permission to use it, Steph, I'm really glad you brought that up. If we think about if I went out and wanted to use Evernote, for example, and which I did use years ago with documented student learning, LKDSB doesn't support me on that as a teacher. So if there's a privacy breach with another app that's not connected to LKDSB, then I'm kind of out there on my own. If anything happens with security on SeeSaw, within our sister, something about privacy for a student, you as a teacher are protected, our board's protected, we're going to work together on all this. We can, like, it's a well supported for students, and it's well supported for teachers as well. So it's a great choice, just like our Google accounts or lkdsb.com. So that is a safe environment. Or not the safest, we can never ensure total safety, but we have things in place that will help keep our students really safe when it comes to privacy.
And we also control the data that is in SeeSaw, correct? As the LKDSB.
So we own that kind of thing. It's not stored in the server in Russia or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last thing I want to show you here, because I know we're kicking along in these settings, you might have heard, well, like kids are be posting things like, how do I manage all this information? Folders. So again, everybody has their favorite way of creating folders. So I'm a grade 5 teacher. I will probably pick yellow because I like yellow for the language. And I'm going to have one for language. Check that off. And then I'm going to create a folder for math. I'm going to go blue for math. And check. And create a folder. I'm going to go green for science. You are a kindergarten teacher, you are probably thinking, I might want to do the 4 frames. And that is how many of our really smart educators have come about and done the 4 frames to organize that. So as soon as a kid puts an artifact in, they can tag it to say, I want this to go in my math folder, or you can tag it afterwards. There's a lot of flexibility when the tagging of folders happens, and you can add folders at any time. So you can see over here on the far right, there's a little folder button. So if you discover like, ooh, I need to split that math folder into like number sense and everything else, you can split that out too. So you can have multiple folders.
Pam, we have a privacy question.
Yes.
So about sharing photos of students, is it just the one student in a photo? Do we have to be aware of the other children who might be in a photo that happen to be in the background?
It's really great for us to be thinking about this proactively. That's a great question. If you are if I'm a teacher and Steph's a student in my class, and I'm documenting like what she's telling me about how to sort 2D shapes, then I can go to her desk and videotape her face and her doing the action, her voice, and I'm posting it to her journal, then that is a safe place to be. If I witness Steph and Mary Lynn having a conversation about which one shouldn't be in that sort, and they're debating it, discussing it, having discourse, then I may switch my camera angle to be focused on their hands and what they're talking about and not show their face as much. So I would take the video choice of viewing the students in that manner. If you've got kids and you see them playing, I would be cautious about how much I'm sharing across the 2 households, and beware of what's happening in the background. Sometimes, like in kindergarten, we have people who said like, oh, really great math moment, and then someone is feeling a little frustrated in the background and may not be responding calmly. You think about students in that. So again, it's about taking that stance about where you take the picture and why you're taking the picture. And it's always best to focus in on one student at a time.
Yeah, just because we have control of the data, that doesn't mean that everyone has access to it in terms of like parents seeing other children.
Right, exactly. And if you think I have a great shot of Steph and Mary Lynn's in the background. And I'm like, oh, I know I shouldn't be sharing things of Mary Lynn very far. You could use a sticker, like you can use a lot of those like things we've learned from other apps to cover up a certain face or put some writing over things just to camouflage who's in the background. That helps as well. So we see lots of people being creative with that. But being mindful about student privacy is a good stance to take as you take your pictures, because it's easier to be proactive with it rather than go, oh, I wish I had a different view on that. So in the wrench there, so you can go back to that wrench as much as you want to change things. If you have explored with SeeSaw for a week and you're like, we're ready to do the home codes, this is another place where you can click on that home learning code to get there. When you're thinking, okay, I got a group of kids in here and they have 0 items in their journals. So how do I add things? Well, there's a great big Go Green Add button. I'm going to click on it. And as a teacher, you're going to see the Post Student Work button. Students see a little different view at the start because this looks different for them. So we're going to click on Post Student Work, and this will bring us to the creative tools to go along. So since people were asking about photos, we'll click on photo. So the tools are, oh yes, I can't in use by another website right now because I'm still sharing. So it's not as fancy as I want it to be. I forgot about that part, Steph. My camera's in use on my Zoom session.
I did too.
Zoom works, but I wonder if I can I wonder if I shut my video off. Will that? If I stop video, I'm still sharing, am I? Let's see. Hey, there we go. Did that work?
That works. Good job.
Hey. There we go. Here I am, looking surprised. So I'm on the computer today, and I'm taking a photo. Most of you will be using like an iPad at school, so you can, I'll probably take a smile this time in my picture. See, garbage. There we go. So if you have access to your library, you'll get those. So take a picture. Smiling away. And then you have all kinds of tools to add on to pieces. So again, if you wanted to cover up someone's face, you know, so maybe I wanted to cover up the fact that my grandparents' picture's over here, you know, as that was a kid, you can put that in there and you can type on things, write on things. Kids can annotate. So it's very
You can make a voice note to go along with it to tell what you were doing or what the child was doing or have them explain what they were doing.
Record your voice, so start recording. Hello everyone, welcome to SeeSaw new session. And again, you have 5 minutes to talk. You probably want to encourage your kids not to talk for 5 minutes. So it's uploading, might take a little bit just because I'm drawing lots of juice. So I am done. Uploading, oh, there we go. And so with the SeeSaw for Schools app, see, we can add multiple pages, which is really nice. So if kids want to talk about a story, they can take a picture, beginning, middle, and end of a story, and then continue to annotate. Then, since I created that artifact, who do I want to give that to? I want to give it to all of them. I can, or do I want to give it specifically to one student? I'll pick Clem, check, and it will go in a folder, check. And he will have an artifact. So students may be able to go through those same steps. So I created something, and they're creating their own artifact, so they've clicked their name to be already in there, and it has now appeared on my running record. And as a teacher, you'll be able to like that. You can comment on it down here at the bottom. So the comments are public. The speech bubble with the T on it is the teacher comment. So again, often this might be a great assessment piece for you. It's like, ooh, you know, Pam wasn't really clear in her key idea. I'm going to come back to her. Or, lots of interesting things, and you can type that in, or you can use the speech tool as well.
And that tool is wonderful for coming back at report card time when you're talking about the observations that you had for students as you were going through units. Having those thoughts right at when it happened with the artifact is really nice to go back and give you a really good idea and ways that you can use comments really effectively to explain what your students have done and where they still need to go. So
type in the comment about where they are and where they're going next. So you can go and listen to that, put that in, and that will show up as like a little record button here. So great for yourself to reflect on. And in the comments as well, you can voice record that. Great introduction, Pam. What's going to happen next? Tell me the story. So if a student looks at that artifact, you've complimented them or gave them a next step or gave them a completion, encouragement, whatever you need, they'll hear that instruction. And Steph, I think we noticed a lot of people were finding that was a great tool to connect home and family. So if you're giving instructions in a written format, to actually read the instructions out loud with the activity, or if you wanted kids to respond to something, it was a really great pairing there.
It does, and it allows a wider range of students to respond depending on where they, like if we're looking at JK or SK students that may not be reading yet, they can interact with you about the work that they've done without having to type. And then parents also can hear your feedback as they're looking at their students' work.
Exactly, and you can change the folder if something didn't get in the folder, that kind of piece. We won't go into the details about this, but there was a skills bank for kindergarten. So if you had clicked as your class to be a kindergarten class, you'll have access to the kindergarten expectations. So when we think about all those creative tools that we have ready, like the photo allows you to do lots of things on it. The drawing might be a tool. It's just like a smartboard whiteboard tool where you can take pictures, add voiceovers. It's great too if you want to add content. A lot of people use this for like a report type page, having kids there. I'm just gonna close that out. I don't want to give that to anybody, trash that. Video. So if you know specifically you want to take a video in SeeSaw, you can have this here. But if you have kids who are out taking videos using the iPads, you can then upload it through the upload it from the picture files going along there. And or if you had something in Google Drive and you wanted to connect to your file that you have over in Google Drive, you can type that in here. If I wanted to give you the link to this PowerPoint, for example, I can just copy a link and put that in here, and that will show up as something for students to look at. And again, you can add page after page to this to go along. So I have to change my settings on that, but see how you can get into my slide deck or a website. A lot of teachers use this a lot if they were sharing a particular website through Safe YouTube and like a read aloud activity, that they put the link right in there and kids went straight to it. So there was no Google searching for anybody.
Pam, just to go back to the commenting for a second again, the teacher, when you're making your teacher comment, like the notes, that is only visible to yourself.
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yeah,
all the rest of the comments are visible to the parent that would be
correct.
Attached to that child.
Right. So I did a good job, so I'm going to like that as a teacher. Comment is public. It's like, it's out there. Everybody's getting that. You can see that. It's the second one with the little T. It's a speech bubble with a T in it. And you'll note it says private notes. Private notes are only visible to teachers.
And you can add more than one, right? You can't just, like, it's not just one. You can add multiple private notes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So again, what's going to be useful for you in the long run, like maybe that's a key learning. Maybe you've identified a next step, or maybe you've identified a growth in learning. or you're going like, I need to talk to my EA or the ECE in the room about this. Maybe they saw something different. Like, again, you can have that kind of like a little reflection journal for yourself. But if you're thinking about assessment purposes, thinking about what has been learned, what was the success with this, and where to go next, that might be a really helpful comment to put in there, rather than like, you know, Pam spoke really clearly. Maybe I wasn't doing oral communication. Maybe it was like she had a good plan for her story. You know, put something in there that will be useful for that assessment piece. But there is a distinct difference between those two. Okay. I was going to say the notes part, again, a lot of teachers use this one to put in their feed. And you can write just like a little note, like, so I'm going to edit the note. So maybe, again, it's a reminder about and labeling.
Meet the teacher. Oh, okay.
Belongings. So that's going to be a really important thing, right? This year, labeling belongings, and we're sharing, we're thinking about sharing. You can voice record something on top of that, which is really helpful for our families to hear the message as well. And it could go to everybody. And that could be just something, maybe I might add a new folder called messages. Messages, check. So that way I can know, like I told you, like, you know, this will pop up in everybody's journal feed, looking for artwork my kids did yesterday and go like, oh, there's a message from the teacher. Just, you know, make sure we label all our belongings. So there's that piece there. Again, I'm trying to get that communication. But you will find that these tools, you'll be quite functional with them. But often I think teachers find they use the drawing one the most, because you can add text and pictures and voiceovers. Like this one's a pretty powerful tool, and the fact that you have multiple pages for it. So again, we often use these for when students are creating their artifacts to put into their journal. And you'll see now my students have, Clem has two, because he has the note, and he has, so if I look at Clem, he has the note and he has a hello from me, whereas Jane only has the one thing. So again, you can sort by students along with that. Okay, and you can sort by folder. So what's happening in the folders. Nope, nothing added to the math one there. So I do want to get, so are we okay about the tools? Because we're going to look at them in a different way here.
We are. Just a question about the messages. For messages, when you're sending messages to parents, they're only for the parents you select, or you can send them blanket to everyone.
Right.
But no one sees the message that would be sent. Say if you sent messages to my parents, but no one else, no one would see those messages or know those messages
Again,
came
this
in.
is a great thing to talk about with teachers at your staff. So I gave that example as like this. I gave everybody a note in the journal, and it's going to be one of the artifacts. There is an inbox, and that is more a message to like a family announcement and student announcement. So I could say to everybody, like, tomorrow is phys ed day. Make sure you have your a hat, because we're going to be outside. Like, you know, you wanted to send every kid, and if they're looking at that. There's also family announcements, which are,
They will go to the family app, correct?
yeah, the family app. And then you could also have communication with just a single parent. Because like now that I have Clem's email address with Clem's mom in there, I can message back and forth there. So again, like I just showed you ways you could communicate with your family, a message to everybody in the journal, or do you want to do a direct inbox and you can have a communication back and forth with a single family, or do you want to send a family announcement to everybody? Like, you know, we used to send everybody like, it's hot lunch, your hot lunch money is due tomorrow. That's a family announcement. I want everybody to be there. But your colleagues at your school will talk about how they use those things, and you will go like, oh yeah, that's for me. So you have different ways of communicating. Now, we talked about all the tools, but then there's a whole bit of buzz on SeeSaw about activities. So you can assign an activity here, but I'm just going to go over to this tab here. And Steph, you've done a lot of work on activities, so you've actually created some, correct?
I have, yes, and I've also assigned activities that are already created in the bank. So
Right.
there are activities that teachers in the Lambton-Kent District School Board have created that they share and that you can use. You can also take them and change them. So once you save them to your library, you can actually edit those activities so that they're exactly what you want for your students. But you can search by grade, you can search by subject, and then you can also create your own. It's pretty powerful, and there's some really, really cool activities that are already there available for you.
Exactly. So like the community means like all SeeSaw community. This is one indicator that you're connected with the LKDSB SeeSaw for schools, if it says school and district here, because you should have access to ones that have been created in district. And so you will see like Gretchen Staines put some in there, but Indigenous coloring book that she shared with people. Some people have just opened up their classroom and said, hey, I made this activity. Maybe you would like to look at this too. Oh, there's one of my pals, Dead Lovely. So she's done an activity about water. So something you may look at. And you can, so students can be assigned a task. So I want to give it to everybody, or do I want it to give it to some students, and what folder I want to put it in there. So I'm going to assign it to my one class. And then they have the opportunity to go and do that. Okay, so now it's showing up in Clem's class. He will have an assigned task to do.
And our teachers and our board have created a lot of activities, and there's French language activities, and there's activities at all levels. There's activities specifically for certain areas. It's really fun to go in there and dig around and see what's in there, because people are doing really, really neat things.
Absolutely. And there's lots of flexibility about it. You can time when it goes in. You can assign it to certain kids. You can assign a template. You can respond things. So there's a whole world open up there, which we have other resources for you to go more deeply into it. But start small. There's some great get to know you activities in the library as well. And so you may want to search for something like that. Just remember to cut down your search time by sorting it things. And then as you add them in, so since I chose the water we eat, it's been put into my library. So it's a record of things I've used. So this is one that a lot of people use, the activity one, describe yourself, get kids to learn how to use the tool, add some words around it. And then there's that option of listening to the instruction is already there. So really great resources there. So again, our goal today is the overview to get you started and encourage you to look through some things. And I'm just going to pop back over to the PowerPoint and see if we did all the things that we said we were going to do. We went to the wrench. Oh, I just want to talk to about when you're talking with families and your own self and the iPad. There are 2 apps. When you're at school, kids will be using the class app. That's what they'll click on to get into able to add their own artifacts. And that's what they'll use at home for the home code app. Mom and dad, grandparents, guardians, they will use the family app, and it will say family on it. And that comes in the instructions about just seeing their own kids as a running record. So the class one is the work and the family one is to view.
And also helpful for the family app. Say your parents speak German at home or Arabic at home, and they have their phone running in German or Arabic. It will offer the option of a translation for any of the messages that you send. Obviously, it's artificial intelligence translation, so it's not always perfect, but they are able to translate your messages to them, and then they are also able to type in first language and then send their message to you, which you can then translate so that you know. That only works in the family app. There's not a translation option in the class app for the children.
Okay, sounds good. Just to, I know some people get worried about, access and all that sort of thing. So this helped me. I got it right off the SeeSaw site. Class codes and home codes. So home codes are different than class codes. Class codes are for students to use when they're working in their classroom. Home learning codes are a secure way for students to log in from home. So those are two different worlds, and we can trust both. So when students are sharing devices, they'll just click on their names and we're only using it in class. When they leave, they should go to use their own device. So they've got a device at home and they will have to use their own code to log in. They'll have a different code than a sibling at their home. Okay, and that is the advice of our superintendents and principals. We're hearing that we should be preparing for change in a learning environment if things happen to change. So once you get introduced to SeeSaw in your class, that might be one of the things that you're looking at by the end of the week or first week or start of the next week is to, if SeeSaw is a go, then let's set up the home learning code so students will have that flexibility back. You will know when it's right for your students to receive that message. Okay, and yeah, so that's just repeating what I said. This is probably the one with the middle piece. To protect student privacy, the class code should not be sent home with students to log in from home. So we use that QR code often to get into our class when we're in class, and we're just like, no, let's keep that in our classrooms where we can, you know, talk about privacy and be careful where we're sharing that. Okay, we did the creative tools. We talked about activities, lots to explore there, lots of expertise. And we did lots of learning about that in June that we have recorded and you'll be able to get access to. I know we're coming down to our end of our year, but end of our time. But if you're thinking, wow, there's a lot, like how do I get my kids going on this? In SeeSaw for Help, if you do some getting started guides, if you click on that, SeeSaw has created this guide and you'll be able to select a grade that's appropriate for you. So I'm thinking my grade 5 theme here. There's a list of things that you can try with your kids. Go exploring. Great ways to get to know your kids too, if this is going to be your platform. So for example, like, why do we keep a journal? How to look after our devices, signing in and out. What's the green button for? Let's do some activities. So again, it's kind of a structured way that you could go through and explore the tool to its full extent, and then you'll be able to use that to support the learning in your classroom. Some ideas there. So that is right in the help document to go along with you. And just listening to this morning's session, we talked about care in the digital online world. And their big advice was like, keep it simple. Let's start with small chunks that we can manage. And this guide kind of all of a sudden took all these bells and whistles of SeeSaw. I can get started with that and maybe read through and try it on my own the next 10 days or so that we have to enjoy our summer without too much stress of the classroom on us yet. And if you're wondering where we can get all the information that we did before in June, if we go into our LKDSB elementary program blog spot, and you'll come across this remote learning resources. They've all been recorded. So if we go into tools, you will see a SeeSaw section and things we learned. If you're new to, we did a couple of sessions, so we talked more in depth about activities, how to get at them. And then we acknowledged that we had lots of expertise in our board. So we had sessions for teachers that were currently using SeeSaw, so they shared information, reflections on it. And then we had really great contributors who are really advanced in the SeeSaw and were into making their own activities and being really creative. So again, there's all of these YouTube sessions have been shared with you. So learning on demand. Now we've given you a little bit of an overview of what SeeSaw is all about. And there we go. So we're coming to an end. And we have other things happening this week. So Steph, what are you looking forward to this week?
I'm excited about the presentation from, so you want to talk about race and the discussion that might happen afterwards.
Mhm.
And then also we have Katie Arnett coming, who is a researcher in second language acquisition. So she's looking mostly at the FSL and FI piece for our board, but also just myths in the language learning classroom, which will be interesting.
Mm. Yeah, I'm Joe Bull, math. She's on this afternoon for math. And Bob Joseph, who wrote 21 Things About the Indigenous, the Indian Act. I've read that book and so interesting. And there's so much, like I'm hosting Stuart Shanker. Some of you, if you're a kindergarten teacher, you might be familiar with his work when he talks about self-regulation, but learning, like I think being calm to start the year is going to help out me personally, but also students I work with. So he's happening on Thursday. So there's so much happening. Graham Fletcher is just a riot talking about math. So there's lots.
Sorry, Pam, we just have a question quickly before we wrap up. When we assign things to a specific student, only that student can see the item that we've assigned,
Yeah.
say in terms of their work, correct? Just because obviously if we upload something and we comment on it in terms of their learning, we want them to see it and not the rest of the class to see it.
Right. So I know a lot of teachers really were able to differentiate instruction for students using these SeeSaw activities. So if you think about math activity I might be offering for my grade 5 students, I might be thinking about how might you multiply 2-digit by 2-digit numbers, or I might have a cluster of students that are really working on that. But I might recognize I've got some kids that are really struggling with that 1-to-1, 1x1 session, and I can find activities that have the same kind of structure. I can create an activity that looks the same, but I'm assigning them different tasks. So I know.
So those students only see the activities that are assigned to them, and their families only see the activities that are assigned to them. They don't see any other student work. Like we're looking at it from a teacher perspective right now. This isn't the student view, and the students would only see items that are specifically assigned to them or items that are assigned to the whole class.
Right, but then the responses is filtered down to a student. Again, like there's so many people using SeeSaw, but just get it at the elbow of a teacher that used it last year and have them actually show you those artifacts. I don't like, because I don't have my own students and I want to be mindful of the student privacy. I don't want to go and plug somebody's information into this. But if you sit beside someone and say, hey, last year, how did you do that? Like give some kids one assignment and other kids another assignment. What does that look like? They'll be very willing to share.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So yeah, make sure to tune in for lots of the other sessions that are happening this week. And all of our videos are available. This video will be available for you, and definitely connect with the teachers in your school, because there are so many of them that have used this already, but also just play around and try it with the sample student, because you can see it from the sample student's view as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Steph. I
Thanks,
haven't seen you, but I feel like we built that relationship online.
Right?
Lots of learning back for us. So again, I'm available if you email me at pamgallant@lkdsb.net. I'm check my net more than my .com, FYI. But if you need a question about online, like this doesn't look right, send me a screenshot, or can you help me get my account set up, anything like that. And I like the ones that are like, oh, that's weird. Let's send that to Pam. And I'm like, yes, that is weird. I like.
I had one of those at the beginning of the year. What's happening, Pam?
So you're not alone in this journey. I say there's lots of expertise in your building, but Steph and I are here if you need to reach out for some other things. Good luck with everybody, and have a really restful last few days. And
enjoy the sunshine.
Absolutely, enjoy that sunshine.